In today's video, we're talking about the big trends in our little industry and my personal predictions in the world of guitar for 2025. I'll be covering everything from tube amps versus modelers, AI in pedals, sustainable materials, and possibly what's coming down the line this year in terms of releases. First of all, let's start with the big one, I suppose, and that is tube amps versus modelers. It feels like today, modelers are the way to go for a lot of modern guitar players. All you have to do is look at last year's Reverb's bestseller list, and the Quad Cortex absolutely dominates the amp space. And there's actually only one traditional amp in the whole top 20 of amps sold last year on Reverb, and it's not even a tube amp, it's one of the Fender Tone Masters. In my personal opinion, there's still something about the vibe and feel of real valve tube amps that we haven't been able to replicate or replace yet. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, and I don't think 2025 is the year that's going to happen, but I'm hoping, and I reckon 2025 might be the year that we start to see tube amps making a little bit of a comeback. Not that they've actually gone anywhere, but with digital tech becoming so good and getting so close to real amps, there's always a little bit of a danger that guitar players are just going to go for that convenience over that final percentage of feel and tone that you get with a valve amp. But if I think back to last year, 2024, the one piece of gear that set the world alight more than anything else was that Fender Jack White Panaverb, a massive 70-watt valve combo, and everyone lost their mind over it. I lost my mind over it. I really want one. I've played one and it is awesome. A release like that from such a major brand gives me hope for what's coming maybe this year and the year after that. But maybe that's the direction that tube amps have to take moving forward, is doing the more exciting stuff. And if that involves a higher price tag and bigger wattage, I suppose, maybe that's the way it's got to go. Maybe smaller wattage, affordable tube amps isn't the way to go, because that market has been replaced now by modelers, especially for the younger generation of guitar players. So if Victory, for example, can come out with a couple of boutique hand-wired 100-watt amps, and Two Rock are doing really exciting things, maybe that's where tube amps have got to go. No holds barred, just the best of the best, the biggest of the biggest. Just get people excited about tube amps again. Okay, I want to talk about Gibson for a little while, a company, a guitar brand that I don't talk about a lot on this channel, and I often avoid talking about on this channel, but I actually do own a couple of Gibsons. I've got a Les Paul Jr. on the wall there, and I have a lovely Gibson acoustic downstairs as well. But it's no secret that they've had their fair share of issues over the last decade, quality control problems probably being the most important. But Gibson's recent models seem really cool. They seem better made. They seem to almost go back to basics in a way. So if 2025 is the year that they keep that momentum going, then I can see a lot of people, I can see them winning a lot of people back over who are currently skeptical about picking up a new Gibson. I'm personally excited. I'm going to bring up the website because I want to see what they've got new at the moment. Loads of Les Pauls. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I'm not a fan of the price, $5 grand, but a Les Paul Jr. with a Brooksby, a double neck Jimmy Page SG. I mean, I'm not liking some of these prices, but in terms of the models and what they're going for, I'm liking all of this. And this whole Gibson garage thing, I personally love that, and I would love to take a trip to the London one. Okay, next up, maybe a little bit of a controversial topic, but I want to talk about AI in pedals. Yes, it's a thing. Companies have started kind of experimenting with it and implementing little AI features into their pedals that are supposed to adapt to your playing, the nuances of your playing, the dynamics. Using AI, that could lead to more intuitive, responsive effects, I guess. Cool idea on paper. Can't really comment on how that feels in real life. All of that whole thing, that whole technology is still in early days, especially when it comes to guitars and pedals. But I think 2025 could be the year that we start to see it cropping up a little bit more. Only in the background of certain effects. I don't think we're going to see any AI ran digital units, but just like I said, little things that adapt to your playing in real time. Something that actually comes to mind is Fjord Fuzz's Mime reverb pedal that came out last year or the year before, and that is a reverb pedal that is supposedly designed by AI. Using a load of prompts, Daniel at Fjord Fuzz was putting in prompts to ChatGPT or whatever to basically design this reverb pedal. A cool idea. Is there room for more of that in 2025? Maybe. we'll have to keep an eye on it. Sustainability is something a lot of brands are looking into at the moment, and they're having to look into it to kind of protect their longevity, I guess. With a lot of issues around deforestation, scarcity of certain woods, a lot of manufacturers are having to explore alternatives. You've got companies like Taylor using non-traditional woods like urban ash and bamboo, but then there's also companies experimenting with materials other than wood, like composite materials and Lite and things like that. Now, I know some people, myself included, are skeptical about non-traditional materials. I think wood has such a big part to play in the tone of a guitar. Let's not get into it, but I think it's inevitable that we're going to see more of this in 2025. These materials can have great tonal properties and of course are more sustainable in the long run. And because they're often man-made materials and they're basically a technology, they can be improved over time. I see a bit more of this sort of sustainable, eco-friendly ethos in some of the smaller brands here in the UK actually. I think back to those Zona guitars I checked out a couple of months ago. He is only using woods from local lumber yards, so he often gets more interesting woods. Can't remember what those were. They were like fir pine bodies, I think, those guitars. And I think we're going to see this ethos start almost at the bottom of the food chain, I guess you could say. That, you know, the smallest builders who are able to experiment and get woods from these local places, and then it will slowly start seeping up to the big guys. Okay, let's talk about pedals. Let's talk about pedals finally, although maybe not in a good light, I guess. Let's talk about a few things that are causing headaches for pedal builders currently, mainly due to components, specifically LDR restrictions and the scarcity of certain transistors, mainly germanium transistors that we like in our old fuzzers. Starting with LDRs, or light dependent resistors. These are crucial in optocouplers and pedals that use a light bulb basically, so things like univibes and other analog effects like that. There are new regulations in the UK and EU that have basically meant that these LDRs are no longer compliant with certain restrictions, meaning brands like Chase Bliss have had to discontinue a whole heap of their pedals. Obviously it's a bit of a headache for people trying to build and design pedals, and I think unfortunately it's only going to affect more and more pedal builders in 2025. There are workarounds to this LDR issue that we're beginning to see, but it's going to take time for this to start being recognized and become mainstream. What I'm trying to say basically is don't expect Chase Bliss to re-release all their discontinued pedals with new kind of compliant components. It's going to take a lot of R&D, and maybe you could argue that that R&D is better spent on new ideas, new things, instead of rehashing old discontinued pedals. On the other hand, we have the scarcity and rarity of old germanium transistors that are used in some of our favorite fuzz pedals. These are becoming harder and harder to find, just basically as they're getting used up. This demand and this rarity is, of course, pushing the prices up, and players, I myself, are starting to question whether these pedals are worth the premium just for those sexy transistors. It's worth bearing in mind, it's something that I'm learning, I've learned from people last year, is that a transistor is just one piece of the puzzle, one piece of a puzzle that makes a fuzz circuit, for example. And there's an argument to be made that they actually don't make too much difference to the tone of a circuit at all. As long as they are paired correctly and the circuit is tuned well, you're going to have a great sounding fuzz. Put yourselves into the shoes of a pedal builder. These transistors can often cost £80 each, and then bear in mind that you need two to make a fuzz face, and then bear in mind that you need to buy loads to find two that pair well. So because of these LDR restrictions and, you know, germanium transistors becoming more expensive, I think it might be a little bit of a quiet year from some of our favourite analog pedal builders. I'd love to be proven wrong on that though, and I'm hoping that people find workarounds sooner rather than later. And of course, there will also be some pedal builders who rise above all this and who are able to keep smashing out incredible designs and pedals for us. Okay, let's touch on a couple of anniversaries that we can expect in 2025. PRS is celebrating their 40th anniversary, having started in '85. Taylor Guitars turns 50, and ESP also hits 50, so two big anniversaries there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some limited edition releases from these companies. some reissues of old guitars. I'd personally like to see some 40th anniversary PRSs, maybe some reissues of some of the first McCartys. That would be epic. One kind of mythological guitar that people often talk about with PRS are the Dragons, the Dragon 2 guitars. Maybe we could see a new Dragon guitar. That would be epic. I'd never be able to afford one, but it's just cool to see. Again, with PRS, I think it's about time we saw an SE version of the PRS Telly, whether that's the Miles Kennedy version or the other one, the NF53. I've played the Miles Kennedy actually, and it was awesome. An amazing guitar. So I think an SE version of either of those would go down really well. Kind of similar to the SE Silver Sky, which has been a bestseller since it was released. Okay, let's talk about guitar creators for a minute. As we all know, you're here watching me, that more and more guitar players are turning to platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok to share demos, share performances, share their talent and their passion for guitar. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, I think. I think it's amazing. It's becoming such a vibrant space, and it's becoming more and more inclusive as well. But with more content creators out there than ever, of course, it's also becoming harder to stand out. And I'm personally finding that. But imagine you're a young guitar player who wants to start up a TikTok or something. How do you break through and become known and visible and seen by different people? On top of that, we've got the TikTok ban looming. Well, actually, it happened temporarily, but there's no promise that it won't happen again. And for someone like me, that puts everything that we do into perspective. What happens if one day YouTube is banned? Then, you know, where does that leave someone like me? It's kind of scary, and like I said, puts everything into perspective. We're going to need to adapt more than ever and find new ways to connect with audiences. This year, I think it would be really cool to see a guitar creator score a big international gig with a massive superstar, kind of like Matteo Sasato did a few years ago. That would be really cool to see sort of a success story from this space. But on the flip side of that, I'd also love to see a big guitar hero start making content. Imagine if John Mayer or whoever decided to start making YouTube videos. Imagine the content that he could make. It would be epic. I guess kind of like what Corey Wong does, but I just want more of it. Let's talk about what might be coming in 2025 in terms of releases. I think this year we're going to see a big lean towards limited edition stuff. And I think we're actually already seeing that in the pedal world a little bit, because it's just so hard to bring hype around a new pedal release in a saturated market. That's kind of the crux of it. So making something limited edition, a little bit more special, is kind of a more natural and easier way to build hype about something and sell more units. And it also kind of makes sense with some of the component issues that I mentioned earlier. Other little things that I think might happen in terms of releases this year is a bit of a lean towards I guess alternative ways of marketing your pedals. You know, the JHS Notaclon thing was massive. They sold thousands, if not tens of thousands of units, although funnily enough, I've never seen one on a pedal board. More recently though, I think about the Chase Bliss mystery box, which absolutely blew up. It's about creating a sense of, you know, an event in a way. The whole thing was an event, and you feel like you missed out if you didn't buy one. I didn't buy one and I feel like I missed out. So I think we're going to see more of that, more alternative ways of releasing pedals. In terms of actual pedal releases though, I think we will see a Timeline MX from Strymon. I think it's about time the Timeline was updated, just like the Big Sky was. Whether it'll do enough to compete with Meris or Eventide, I don't know. I also think AI is going to start to be a factor in those bigger digital units. Another one that's come to mind is the Tonex 1 was huge last year, but whenever I see them on pedal boards, they're often running two side by side in stereo. So maybe this year it'd be cool to see a Tonex 2, which is basically two in one box. Okay, some quick fire predictions from 2025. I think pedal boards are going to start getting smaller. Vintage guitars overall are going to start coming down in value. They already have in a way, but made in Japan vintage is going to start going up. Fender will release a new Stratocaster this year, but it'll just be a Strat. Gibson will also undo all of their hard work and double down on the self-tuning guitar. More Creator signature products, which will be cool. Someone will release a wireless pedal board system that just won't work at all. And also there will be a new AI practice tool that will just actually abuse your playing. I'll definitely be buying one of those. That's it for today's predictions. What do you guys think? Will tube amps make a comeback this year, or will AI powered pedals completely take over? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. As I'm filming this, it's actually NAMM this weekend, so everything I've said in this video might be completely wrong. We'll find out in a couple of days. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.